Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Morning Cowbell. We are here today. It is 8:11 a.m. on March 27th, 2023. 27 is my favorite number, not only because I was born on October 27th, and I know that's a little bit of narcissistic, like, is your birthday really going to be your favorite number? But 27 is just a very special number. I mean, there's something about that number that's scary as an age, because I think that's like officially like you're out of your 20s type of thing. 26 is like that last number before you're like kind of early mid 20s. 27, you're done. But also 27 is just like it's always been an interesting number to me. And so it's March 27th, 2023. Love that number. Here we are. Thank you for being here. Cameron Investing, Tesla, Larry, thank you all for being here. Again, morning stream will be at 9:20. Before that, though, we do the Morning Cowbell, where I get to talk about a bunch of topics in depth over the next 40 minutes. Clip those up throughout the entire day so you guys can catch the clips if you don't catch the actual full live stream, and keep going throughout the day. I want to get better at this. I don't think I'm perfect at this by any means. I have to get better at my communication skills, improvisation skills, all that stuff. But we're going to try to get better at that every single day, because the more you do something, the better you get at it. And it's as simple as that. Pete, what's up? Everclear, what's up? Does Palantir work in Canada? Yes, Palantir has jobs in Canada. They have an office in Canada, so they work in Canada. All right, so we got a couple of topics lined up. I want to get into some interesting ones, and we're going to keep going from there. And we will get started. Okay. 27 is also the special age for celebrity musicians to knock off. Bro, Heath Ledger, I believe he died at 27. They uploaded The Dark Knight on Netflix again over the weekend, and every time I see The Dark Knight on Netflix, I just have to like skim through it. I can't watch the whole thing, but it's just like top 5 movies of all time for me. I just skim through some of the scenes just to like I think I've seen it at least like 30, 40 times. And the Joker, the most legendary Joker ever. Okay. Meta stock. We're starting off with Meta stock today. Morgan Stanley believes that Meta has 50% upside. Right now it's at $200. Morgan Stanley believes, hey, this bad boy can go to $250. Remember, Meta stock fell to $88. It was the lowest it has been really since around 2014, 2015. And the stock has since rebounded quite significantly, now up at $200, primarily because of a factor of a couple things. Number one, TikTok security concerns have definitely allowed Meta investors to feel even more confident in their investment. TikTok has taken away a lot of market share in terms of just the ability to monetize the worldwide attention of a humanity and of a species. Meta, again, their products really control 3 billion people's attention, 3.7 billion people's attention monthly in the combination of Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. Facebook this year, in March, actually crossed 2 billion daily active users. So for all the people that say Facebook's dead, for 2 billion people every single day, it is not dead. And it is one of the primary sources in which they consume information, the way they get information, the way they get the news, all that type of stuff. Instagram has about 1.93 billion DAUs. I believe WhatsApp's also at 2 billion DAUs, and they barely began to monetize WhatsApp. TikTok was taking away some of that attention, and a significant amount of it, over the past couple of years, as TikTok has started to wind down, not in terms of its relevance, but just in terms of its overall growth. If you look at their download numbers, they're down, usage numbers are down, still a huge platform, but not growing as exponentially as it was in 2019, 2020. Meta has been able to regain a footing. And with the potential of TikTok being banned, or at least the potential of TikTok not being as safe, Meta investors also feel that Meta is on the way to go. So that was the first thing that has improved Meta. The second thing is that investors realized that $88, this was an absolute steal. You know, investors really understood the potential of something that has 2 billion DAUs, averaging almost $32 billion of revenue every single quarter with incredible margins. The only thing that has been hurting Meta has really been this Reality Labs metaverse focus, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But I mean, a lot of investors are starting to feel that the metaverse is going to be a losing category, and that the losses that Facebook is taking on it is just not worth it. And, you know, eventually Facebook will decide what they want to do. Final thing before we get into this video, layoffs. Facebook has cut over 25,000 people. That has really helped the stock, and investors and shareholders feel more confidence that Facebook is a play to be in. So let's take a look at why Meta is rising on Morgan Stanley's upgrade.
We're a few minutes till the opening bell, so we've got some movers for you. One of them is right up there on your screen. It is Meta. The shares are up about 3%. That's after Morgan Stanley raised its rating on the social media giant, noting Meta's ongoing efforts to slash costs in its year of efficiency. And if that sounds familiar, well, it's because we were just talking about a similar theme at Amazon, because this is really the theme for large cap tech right now, Brad. And this note is interesting because obviously we knew that this was going on, but it's sort of a Morgan Stanley reassessment of this. The price target, by the way, going to $250. So it's a $60 increase for Brian Nowak over there at Morgan Stanley.
Yeah, I mean, for Meta and all of the spending that they have been extremely aggressive about within the metaverse, and how all of their different ambitions have started to dovetail even more so into what the hardware of the future of their platform might look like too. I think if there is any positive to come, at least early in this year, it is the efficiency that they're looking to drive right now. And that has gotten a positive review from the street thus far. And even more of kind of a positive note being signaled here, especially off of some of the lows that we had seen of late last year. I think perhaps the bottom could be easily set in for Meta here, given the move that we've seen over the past 6 months. And now even looking out towards the future and what the efficiency structure may look like, but then also how they're going to prioritize for their investors, just making sure that profitability is the chief priority, even as they navigate what is an uncertain, to say the least, 2023 here on an economic standpoint.
Indeed. And a couple of other interesting notes to pull out from Nowak's note. One of them is that it's not just a 2023 story for Meta. He thinks this is really a profound cultural shift at the company. And he had been had a buy rating the company for a while, downgraded it to equal rate in October, and now this upgrade is coming. He says the year of efficiency is more than just a 365-day change. It is rather a structural and cultural pivot to operate leaner and with a greater focus on investor returns, even through.
So as we can see, Meta has a lot of things going for it in terms of how shareholders and the investor community writ large are trying to approach it. Someone in the chat says, Everclear, how much Meta did you buy, Amit? And he also said, bless you, because he saw me sneeze. So thank you for the bless you. I bought no Meta. And so as bullish I am about Meta, I ended up not allocating capital towards Meta at the time. I actually ended up purchasing some different stocks, more around SoFi, Tesla, and Palantir. Probably was a mistake. Should have purchased some Meta at 88. Hindsight is 2020. That was, I believe, the bottom in October. We're looking at October 13th, October 20th, around that range. Meta started to bottom. And personally, it made sense to buy. I didn't end up pulling the trigger. And now at 200, it's a little bit harder to justify pulling the trigger just because they have a lot going for them, but they've already run up so much. And I think this is the same problem that exists with a lot of stocks. Same thing with NVIDIA, right? Like NVIDIA should have bought it at $109. One could have argued it was overvalued at $109. Now it's at $260. Do you really want to buy it at $260? It's like, yeah, they do have upside to $340, but and so this is the peculiar situation. You can't win all of them as you're trying to get some of these bottoms, and it's very difficult to find the bottom in the first place. But that's why the investment thesis needs to stay intact. Now, I did buy Meta at 325 back in February 2022. And that was also the wrong decision, right? Because obviously we saw the collapse. I eliminated the Meta position, DCA'd into Palantir at $12 and took like a $1,000 loss on that position. But ultimately, when Meta got down to 88, it probably should have been the trigger to re-enter. Didn't end up re-entering. Lowest I bought Meta was at 105, average is at 135. Yeah, and that's not a bad average at all. So, what is Meta's future going forward? I think the number one thing to understand about Meta that a lot of people don't understand is the content discovery play. And I feel like I'm sometimes the only one that talks about this because I care so deeply about content discovery. I have an entire startup that's dedicated to figuring out how can we get content discovered in a more meaningful way. The initial thesis, and you can go back to my YouTube channel back in February 2022 of why I bought Meta at 325, is because my friend Ryan was starting a smoothie store. And the first place he was going to advertise his new smoothie store was Instagram and Facebook. And it just ticked in my head, this is a realization a lot of investors have had over the past 10 years, but I was just like, there is no other place to advertise in the context of bringing a new product out into the world outside of Facebook. I mean, there are very, very few places in the world where you can go and pay this thing a little bit of money, really a little bit of money, 20, 50, $100, and start getting exposure, much less posting organic content and also getting organic exposure for free. And so, when I started to analyze it from that perspective, that thesis really has never changed. The market has changed, but that thesis has not changed. 2 billion people still use the product. You've got TikTok with all the concerns they have. You've got Google search that is not going away anytime soon, but with the advances in ChatGPT, you're at least looking at search like, are people really going to start searching and then clicking on ads, which has been, a 95% margin business for Google over the past 2 decades? And if that does go away, how do people discover advertising? How do people discover new products? Well, the only way is if they get to see that stuff. And the easiest way was you search for something, boom, it pops up, first 3 links, you click, there's a direct relationship from an advertising perspective for you to be able to discover content. If that doesn't exist, then how does someone discover content? Well, the number one way is if you're scrolling through a feed, whether that feed is YouTube videos or thumbnails or Facebook posts, and something pops up. And so I think with the advancement of search engines that are giving you answers and not ads, and I don't know if that ultimately is what ChatGPT becomes on a global level like Google, but let's say it captures a little bit of the market, which we're already seeing it's doing, then where are people going to advertise for cheap? It's going to be in a feed where, and again, what are these feeds? They're just inventory of supply, right? People are like, think of YouTube feed, right? 5 people upload a video. You have 5 thumbnails and titles. YouTube shows you those 5. And in between scrolling through those 5, they place an advertisement that they think you might click on. And as a result of that, they have now allowed advertisers to gain access to your attention and allowed you to potentially discover a new product, which then leads to this advertising relationship that results in $30 billion of revenue for YouTube every year. If search goes away and there's not that many products in the world that can meaningfully show you an ad as you're scrolling through something because they just don't have the economies of scale, then Facebook becomes the only player left in town. The only way I think Facebook, Meta, etc. fails is if people stop using those products, if people stop using Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook. And for the past decade, that hasn't happened. TikTok has been the biggest threat, and TikTok has not been able to take away a meaningful amount of market share. LinkedIn is in its own category. Snapchat doesn't have a chance. YouTube is there, but YouTube is primarily suited for video. So like, what's left, right? What is the next network that's actually going to dethrone the king? And I don't see those networks existing. Now, in terms of the metaverse, not excited for it. Personally, I do not think people are going to spend time in a headset. So that's also a big apprehension I had towards buying Meta at 88, because I was like, if they're going to keep losing $16 billion a year on this metaverse, I'm not excited about it. But if, I don't know if they completely pivot, but if they stop spending as much and like the metaverse kind of becomes a thing, but it doesn't become the main thing over the next 5-6 years, Facebook probably has a lot of upside just on the advertising business alone. It's just the problem is they're using the advertising business, which is like high margin, to subsidize something that is unprofitable, massively unprofitable. And unless that thing actually becomes profitable, you can keep laying off people. But if you keep spending $16 billion a year on this thing that no one might end up caring about, that might become the Amazon Fire phone, right? And I don't think it will, but if it does, that's the only apprehension I have towards Meta stock. Other than that, Morgan Stanley upgrades Meta to 250. Let me know in the comments if you think that Meta is a buy. All right. In rural America, businesses don't even have their own websites. They have Facebook. Yeah, that's such a good point, Ty. That's such a good point. In places like India, my uncle just came back from India yesterday. He came back to our house and we were talking to him, and he was like, when you want to pay for something on the street, like pay for something that's like 50 rupees, which is like less than $1 for like a snack or something, the vendors, they have WhatsApp, and you scan a QR code and then boom, you transfer the money. Done. Commerce, right? It's like Facebook is enabling commerce for some of the most rural populations in the world using technology. And that actually is really cool. I mean, that's really, really dope. And you think of that scales across all parts of the world that don't even have access to the internet, which is like 3-4 billion people. And Facebook is the beneficiary of that, or at least a beneficiary of 10% of that. That's upside. That's upside and new opportunity for the products to grow. And so that's definitely exciting for Facebook. Google search results are getting worse. Too many curated responses. I agree as well. All media platforms eventually become sterilized towards mainstream propaganda. The internet has a tougher nut to crack in that regard, but it is happening. Google has played a huge role in that. Yeah, I also agree with that. I mean, at the end of the day, the stuff on Facebook that's trending tends to be around Kim Kardashian and all this other nonsense. But at least it has an opportunity to curate content and get people's ideas out there into the world. I mean, like, that's the beautiful thing about YouTube, right? The fact that I have an opportunity for 144 people to be here this morning, which thank you all for being here, means a lot to me. I wouldn't class myself as mainstream media, but the fact that I'm even here is because of YouTube, right? And their algorithm and their curation. And so as the platforms end up becoming mainstream, but if they can democratize voices for some of us, then hopefully that's a good thing that the platforms enable at scale. All right, let's go on to our next topic. Elon Musk versus Sam Altman. Now, this is a really interesting topic that I've been studying over the past couple of days. Elon Musk apparently co-founded OpenAI because the guy co-founds everything. And OpenAI, for those that don't know, is now a multi-billion-dollar company. Microsoft has purchased $10 billion of it, or has done an investment for $10 billion. And they are the inventors of ChatGPT. They are basically, their mission is trying to create an artificial general intelligence, an AGI, that is ethical, sustainable, et cetera, et cetera. That's at least their mission. They started in 2015 as a nonprofit. Elon Musk gave them $100 million to fund it. They raised about $1 billion from different sets of investors, but they weren't really investors. They were more donators because the company was a nonprofit. The whole idea was to create an ethical version of artificial intelligence that is a hedge against Google being a company that is dominated by shareholder interest to get their hands on AI. If Google became the ultimate winner of AI, we know the people that Google looks out for, shareholders at the end of the day. Whereas a nonprofit doesn't have to look over for shareholders because of the corporate structure, which means they don't need to worry about amassing the amounts of capital that are necessary to end up appeasing shareholders. Apparently, Elon Musk recognized that OpenAI was starting to change from its original nonprofit orientation. Now it is a for-profit company, and wanted to take over the company in 2018. Let's take a look at this clip, and then let's take a look at Sam Altman's response, who recently did a podcast with Lex Friedman this weekend.
Between Tesla's Elon Musk and another company he founded, OpenAI. Following Musk's departure from OpenAI and the arrival of ChatGPT, rumors are swirling that Musk could now aim to launch another AI startup. Joining us now with the story, Reed Albergati, Semaphores Technology editor. And what Bill Gates said something, this is going to be bigger than the personal computer. Now I'm scared, Reed. AI. Are you real?
It is.
Is this are these your words, or are you a bot?
No, these are my words.
Okay.
So no, it is quite astonishing, honestly. And I think that, what we revealed in this story this morning is that, Elon Musk basically had this, OpenAI. He had the hottest startup. He helped create it. And then back in 2018, he completely lost faith in it and just basically bailed. He had promised $1 billion that he was going to donate to it. It was a nonprofit at the time, and then just left and didn't give any more money. And, after he left, OpenAI decided that they needed a lot of money. There had been this new discovery called the transformer model. And it was pretty clear it was just going to take a lot of money to train this thing, because it was sort of the bigger it is, the better it is kind of thing. And they decided to become a for-profit. And now Musk has been on Twitter sort of criticizing them for making this transition. And, it's kind of ironic because he kind of helped push them in that direction.
That is interesting. So how many players eventually, well, we don't know, do we? But do you agree that we're on the cusp of something really significant? Is this going to be another I think sort of a singularity type? We don't even know what's coming because it's so eventful.
We don't know. I mean, I do agree. I think this is going to be a complete game changer. Some people are afraid that this artificial intelligence is going to rise up and take us over, so like in the Terminator or something. I don't think that we're headed in that direction quite yet. I think what we're looking at, though, is a lot of disruption, a lot of people being displaced by computers.
Okay, so as you can see, Elon Musk got tired of the company, didn't really like it, didn't like the direction it was going, ultimately pulled out of it, said he was going to put $1 billion, only put in $100 million, which then the company decides to change from a nonprofit to profit. And we have Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, explaining why that happened.
OpenAI stopped being nonprofit or split up in 20. Can you describe that whole process?
Yeah,
how
so
things stand?
we started as a nonprofit. We learned early on that we were going to need far more capital than we were able to raise as a nonprofit. Our nonprofit is still fully in charge. There is a subsidiary capped profit so that our investors and employees can earn a certain fixed return.
Now, what he means by capped profit, which is such an interesting concept, is they have a nonprofit, then there's a subsidiary of that is enabled to create profit from whatever products they sell to the public. But that profit is capped. So it's almost like, imagine you could only make XYZ return on your money. The whole point of investing, right, is that the potential for the company to explode means like you could make 1 trillion times on your money if the company really does that well, right? In speaking hyperbolically. So, but there's a cap now to this subsidiary profitable version of OpenAI for certain investors to get a return, which is a very interesting model.
And then beyond that, everything else flows to the nonprofit. And the nonprofit is like in voting control, lets us make a bunch of non-standard decisions, can cancel equity, can do a whole bunch of other things. can let us merge with another org, protects us from making decisions that are not in any like shareholders' interest. So I think it's a structure that has been important to a lot of the decisions we've made.
What went into that decision process for taking a leap from nonprofit to capped for-profit? What are the pros and cons you were deciding at the time? I mean, this was 2019.
It was really like, to do what we needed to go do, we had tried and failed enough to raise the money as a nonprofit. We didn't see a path forward there. So we needed some of the benefits of capitalism, but not too much. I remember at the time someone said, as a nonprofit, not enough will happen. As a for-profit, too much will happen. So we need this sort of strange intermediate.
What you kind of had this offhand comment of you worry about the uncapped companies that play with AGI. Can you elaborate on the worry here? Because AGI, out of all the technologies we have in our hands, has the potential to make the cap is 100x for OpenAI.
It started is that it's much, much lower for like new investors now.
AGI can make a lot more than 100x
for sure.
And so, how do you compete? This.
And again, this is the interesting idea, right? Now that they have a for-profit subsidiary, 100x used to be the cap. Now Sam is saying that it's lower than 100x. Let's call it 50x, which means if you put in $1, you have the potential to get $50. That's a great return. It's very difficult to get that type of return. And so the idea that they turned into this nonprofit with a profit-sharing sort of, subsidiary is interesting to sort of see how it's playing out. Now, the really unique part about this to me, and hearing kind of Sam Altman talk about this versus Elon Musk, is they both don't really like each other when it comes to this. They both respect each other. They both care about the nature of AGI and where it's going and how AI is incredibly important, and they lose sleep at night over how powerful AI can be. But this distinction between the profitable version of a company and the non-profitable version of a company is, I think, where the dispute comes in. The reason Sam Altman said they had to go raise money is primarily from like investors that had a capped for-profit fixed return, is because they had issues raising money as a nonprofit. And so, as a nonprofit, at the end of the day, America and the world is greedy, and we want a return. And it's very difficult to get someone to give you billions of dollars to go fund this thing that they don't see any return on, especially if that thing does not have the humanitarian efforts that are philanthropic intrinsically, right? Like if I could give $1 billion to the American Cancer Association and have them, do a ton of research and save lives, it's harder for me to justify that $1 billion into an AGI potential thing that will one day be incredibly important for cancer research, because using AI and machine learning to actually being able to enable data-driven health research is probably way more effective than giving $1 billion just to an association that's been doing research in the same way. But to not see the vision for that and to not see the concrete reality of that, it's probably a lot harder to give money to that. That's where investing comes in, because the whole point of angel investing or venture investing or seed investing is you're putting money into something where you don't really see the real potential. You think there's a chance. Peter Thiel, when he put 500,000 into Facebook, I don't think he knew it was going to have 3 billion people using it one day. But he was like, it might have a chance to actually succeed. But the incentive, the sort of human nature that is oriented around being able to give up that much money, whether it's 500,000 or 500 million, is that there's a return on the other end of the tunnel. Right? There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that is a return for your capital. It is what intrinsically rewards the risk that you are taking. If that doesn't exist for something as powerful as AGI, I think Sam does have a point that it leads to the disincentivization of very rich people. And Sam Altman's network, for those that don't know, he is a very wealthy person because he invested in a lot of startups at a young age. You can access that network very easily, but to convince them to actually invest or to donate is a harder thing to do. Now, Elon's point, which I also understand as well, is like, this is too powerful to ever let it become profitable, which is why he gave you 100 million in the first place, because it was always a hedge against Google. I don't know who's necessarily right, because from a logical perspective, yes, you do need money to do stuff, right? Sam is correct. If you don't have the money to do stuff, it's going to be hard to get stuff done. And especially when it comes to ChatGPT, they're, paying XYZ amount of thousands of dollars per second to be able to compact to be able to transmit all the compute power to enable something like ChatGPT to work. You need money to do that. You need Microsoft's servers. And if people aren't willing to pay that stuff, it cannot scale. And so the logical side of my brain is like, Sam Altman is right. the more ethical side of my brain is like, well, if AGI becomes that profitable and there's a or becomes that powerful and there's a profit association attached with it, it's ultimately not going to be one of the things we ever would want to be profitable. So I think Elon has a point. I think Sam has a point. Gun to my head, I would probably side with Sam because you need money to get stuff done. And if you don't have the money, the stuff can't get done. But let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think Elon is correct and Sam Altman is, kind of BSing us about how we needed money to get this stuff done? Or do you think Sam is correct and Elon is just salty that he left OpenAI in 2018 and he doesn't really get to have the clout for being the inventor of ChatGPT? Could you imagine if Elon was the inventor of Neuralink, Tesla, SpaceX, the Boring Company, and now ChatGPT? Like that's the most insane entrepreneur resume of all time. So let me know what you think in the comments. All right, so that was our Elon and OpenAI segment. Dozens of AI tools were unleashed on the world almost simultaneously. I wouldn't call it organic. AI has been in the news a lot recently, and I see new startups every single day leaning more towards how they're going to be able to leverage AI. And I don't know if all of these startups are going to win and succeed, but the fact that they're all having the potential to use AI in a meaningful way and like actually be able to establish themselves is pretty incredible. And so we're going to see what happens. DNA under investigation by former Louisiana Attorney General. Are we talking about Ginkgo Bioworks? Ginkgo Bioworks investigation. Did that just come out? Yeah, look at that. Here we go. Ginkgo is under Well, this was from the short report in October 2021. Yeah, it doesn't say much about why they're investigating them. Look, a lot of these investigations happen all the time. I'm assuming they're investigating them for violating state or federal laws around fiduciary duties. Yeah, this seems. Yeah, when it comes down to fiduciary duties, it's so broad. It's like, did they sell too much stock? Did they not do XYZ? Did they? They seem to be analyzing the short report that Scorpion came out with in October 2021 and trying to use those claims as a justification for suing them. I think the short reports have been debunked for a year now. I mean, like, let's see if there's any real legitimacy to that. But yeah, it makes sense that they're getting sued. Why are you so early? So Gabe, what I'm doing is I'm doing basically what Kevin does. I morning stream for like 40 minutes. I use those to make my videos throughout the day. And then we get into the morning open at 9:20 a.m. So airport viewership. Nate, why are you at the airport? What are you doing? Where are you going? Where do you have to go, Nate? What are you trying to do? John Stevens, PayPal too. Yep, I agree. PayPal's under investigation. Wow. This is why SoFi had to sue the Biden administration. They were like, we're not going to let people tell us we weren't being ethical for shareholders or whatever. So we had to sue everybody. Okay, the next piece of news we have is around Microsoft, and I want to get into this one, so we'll get into that as well. Flying to Boston for training for a job. Okay, very cool. You should go see Sean while you're there. You should hit him up. Should talk to him. Boston is a very special place in my heart. Very special, especially the Harvard campus. Yeah, Boston is. I love Boston. I really love Boston. It means a lot to me. Yo, good morning, Amit. Doug, what's up? Elon started PayPal. Oh, that's what you meant. Yes, Elon. I forgot to mention Elon also started PayPal. That's true. Check PLTX Captain Y is issued an independent research saying Palantir is forging a clip out and is unjustifiably. Are you talking about Palantir, Cleddy, or Plant X? Is that a different? For some reason, Plant X might be okay. Send me the link to that. If you can send me the link either on Twitter, Adamit is investing, or in the chat, then I'll take a look at that. I thought you meant Palantir. It looks like that. Oh no, you're talking about PLTX. Okay, so that's different. Yeah, send me the link to that, and I'll take a look at that. Is Palantir an out-and-out AI play? Palantir is absolutely an AI play. There's a video called "Artificial Intelligence Isn't a Game" to Palantir. Search that on YouTube, and you'll get a clip of me talking about that. It's definitely a AI play. Okay, let's get into this next topic. Microsoft has a $22 billion case for combat-ready AR. Now, the reason I wanted to cover this is because we talk about the metaverse and we talk about Meta's aspirations for using virtual reality, artificial or augmented reality in some type of metaverse, right? Some type of meaningful way. They are spending $16 billion a year subsidizing their ability to develop these things. they never really talked about it from a military use application. And Microsoft is no stranger to defense contracts. Facebook has typically stayed away from defense contracts. Governments have been a little bit weary of trusting Facebook, even though now, given the way that TikTok operates, governments are probably way more happier that they have Facebook versus TikTok. But Microsoft has a chance to potentially say, look, gaming and the metaverse aren't really the ways we're going to make money off VR AR, but military contracts are highly lucrative. And it's interesting because I think everyone over the past couple of sort of years has been searching for what is the bull case for AR? What is the bull case for VR? How do we actually establish AR and VR in a way that shows a path or an industry that is investable, right? And so you've got a bunch of companies working in it when it comes to Microsoft, Google, Meta, Apple, their AR headset probably coming out in a couple of months, probably. They said June 2023, it should be out, or July at the Worldwide Developers Conference. But the military application of it is probably one of the most obvious ones. So let's go to a little bit here in this article. Last week, Meta Platforms laid off 10,000 people. The company has lost more than $20 billion to date on its Reality Labs division that comprises from everything to headsets and avatars. Okay. Microsoft is also trying to break into this business, but instead of chasing consumers, it's trying to land corporate customers who would use its HoloLens system in professional settings, such as medical education and engineering. The focus mimics the software giant's own turnaround a decade ago from selling operating systems for computers to cloud computing and data storage for enterprises. And this is where I think Microsoft is very interesting from a pure qualitative perspective. If you don't remember, a decade ago, Microsoft was struggling, right? It was not in a good position. Steve Ballmer was not really bringing it back to light. And then Satya Nadella, I believe, came in 2013, 2014 and said, we're going to change everything up. The first thing is they started switching from selling operating systems, right? Microsoft, Windows, Office, etc., to cloud computing. So they issued this new world of, hey, we're going to become the backend infrastructure for every single application on the planet, basically copying Amazon Web Services, but doing it in a more refined, lean way and offering some competition to AWS, right? Because AWS basically had a monopoly until 2012, 2013. And so Microsoft started engaging in that. Data storage was huge for enterprises. So they saw the cloud computing revolution happening, and they decided to take advantage of that. And they also bought LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn to me is one of the most underestimated acquisitions of all time. The LinkedIn, I think, pulled up about $8 billion in just advertising revenue last year. And it gave Microsoft a social play that they didn't have before. And the social play, even though it's not traditional like Snapchat, TikTok, entertainment, social, LinkedIn is absolutely a place to discover and find content. And you've got 3 million people, I think, posting there daily, resulting in like 9 billion impressions. So the opportunity in terms of supply and demand of attention for content is massive on LinkedIn. And as a result of that, I think that was also one of the things that people underestimated around what Satya Nadella did. When it comes to major customers, there's more larger than the US government. There's none larger than the US. In 2018, the Redmond company beat out unicorn startup Magic Leap to land a $479 million deal to develop a prototype headset based on HoloLens augmented reality devices for the military. While VR cuts a person off from the real world, making them entirely reliant on computer-generated sights and sounds, AR systems interact with the surroundings. The eyes and ears can sense what's going on while also being augmented within a simulated environment. For the military, locking a soldier's eyes behind a screen is too risky. If there's a power failure or technical glitch, they could be left behind. The U.S. Army believes that enhancing rather than replacing a soldier's senses could give them an advantage. Other nations agree, with Israel among these deploying their technology. China has its own version, etc. So what this would mean is that not on the battlefield, you're not kind of necessarily wearing all of this equipment, but you are being able to use this equipment in training purposes. And in those training purposes, then that gives you the ability to be a little bit more better. Now, there are some places where you can actually wear that equipment. And this goes to this paragraph here. The invention of night vision goggles and improvement in that technology allowed the American military to own the night and conduct high-risk operations by leveraging their visual advantage in, for example, the 2011 raid in Pakistan that killed al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. But that edge is being weakened by the proliferation of night vision goggles among armed opposition groups. So like if other groups have that stuff, it doesn't really give you the advantage. Now, the argument about Osama bin Laden is also very interesting. I actually watched a little bit of a documentary this weekend on the raid that captured Osama bin Laden. And for those that don't know, when they got into that military compound in Pakistan, they could see nothing. Right. So those night vision goggles were incredibly important because they literally saw nothing. If they take one wrong step, Osama's gone from the compound, or they shoot the wrong person. There was a bunch of women and kids there. So they had to sift through all of that eventually to get to Osama before they were able to execute him. And those night vision goggles did end up playing a major role. And so we see here, instead of approving the next round of procurement money, which would have bought thousands of more devices, Congress froze almost $400 million in funds for the integrated visual augmenting system to be spent this year until the problems could be worked out. As a result, the Army gave out a new contract in January worth just $125 million. While much has been made of these hiccups and the reduced budget, the overall trajectory of this project remains unchanged. With technology an increasingly important differentiator in the battlefield, there's little chance the government will nix plan to give soldiers an edge. Now, this is also really interesting to me because, well, if we know military applications are the greatest use of something like VR and AR, I also think it's not a crazy thing to imagine military applications and operational battlefields being the greatest application of AI at scale. And if you look at the intersection of AI, VR, and AR, all three of those coming together, like that is multiple hundreds of billions of dollars of a market cap to me, just in terms of the total addressable market that companies can capture. And not only do I think Microsoft is going after that, but I think Palantir is as well. And I would love nothing more than a Palantir Microsoft combination where Microsoft is building the actual hardware and Palantir is building the backend infrastructure or software in order for that hardware from a AR perspective to operate on. I don't know what that combination looks like. I don't know how it would work. But if Palantir is being able to give deals to the military with AI operational decision making, and Microsoft is being able to give the actual hardware devices through the HoloLens project they have for the military to be able to use that stuff in training, there is a world in which there could be a partnership there. But I think the overarching point is that the military is where most of these applications will happen. And the military is where most of the real TAM for the metaverse exists. I personally don't see it in gaming. I personally don't see it in the adult industry. Like, when you think about hundreds of billions of dollars, who's going to spend all that, right? The only way you get that for consumers, right, in the context of the iPhone, there's 2 billion iPhones, is people have to spend $1,000 on these devices. And I've been saying this for a year, I just don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think people are going to spend $1,500 every single year to upgrade, or every other year to upgrade to some device that they're barely going to be spending time in, or that the experience in that device is not going to be that interesting. There will be medical applications of that. There will be educational applications of that. Those markets are not as big as military applications of that, which I think Microsoft has realized is the ultimate play, which means Microsoft might be the winner when it comes to the metaverse over Meta, because they're just targeting a different segmentation that's actually going to buy their products. Okay. Reza, good morning. Futbucker, good morning. Microsoft has huge problems in retaining talent in AR. People there don't like making things that helps to kill people or gamifying the killing. Yeah, I guess they're going to have to figure out how to get people to stay and not leave at the end of the day. But I mean, that is a concern with retention and having people stay in the culture of that type of company. Again, when it comes to killing people or gamifying killing, it's funny because Microsoft, don't they own Xbox? And like the number one game on Xbox is Call of Duty. I might be wrong on that, but the number one game on Xbox is a first-person shooter game. So I guess, the people that are leaving Microsoft don't really know too much about that. You said you like Wejo, but wouldn't invest in it, but you think it'll survive the downturn. What are the odds that it get back to $2 a share? Look, Wejo's at 50 cents. Could it get back to $2? 100%, which is what, a 3x, 4x from here? Yes, it could. The problem is, I think Wejo is in a hard situation in terms of proving to the market that their data as a service kind of platform product not only is scalable, but is going to create a ton of revenue. And again, I know Wejo personally, I know the company personally, I know about their product. I think they have a long way to go before before some type of institutional investors really step in and they decide to pick up the stock. That's why I think Wejo is very skeptical. Like at 55 cents, I don't even know if it's necessarily undervalued, because they really need institutional investors to buy in. Retail is not going to pump the stock up to $2. So personally, I would stay away from it because I think there's other opportunities in the market. Me, Chris, and Vitaly are going to talk about a REIT today that's paying a 15.6% dividend, which I think is a way better opportunity, to be honest. We'll be talking about that tonight at 10 p.m. But Wejo's hard. I think Wejo's very hard to justify. And you've got to analyze the earnings. I mean, they just did this kind of reverse merger stuff. I think they need a year before they get some stability, and they need to show some revenue growth sustainably to justify picking up the stock. So personally, I would not get into there. Doesn't a lot of Microsoft new feature coming out looks like Palantir at work on Azure? Maybe. I've seen some screenshots of that. Not fully sure, but yes, it definitely does look like that to an extent. Did you know someone was live tweeting during the Osama raid in that same town? Wow. I did not know that. It's in the movie. Yeah, it's in Zero Dark 30, but it's also in some other kind of documentaries I've seen, the scene that I'm talking about. But yeah, it's in Zero Dark 30 as well. Hi, Amit. Can you please tell me how I can learn more about options? I personally do not make a ton of videos about options. I think GS Strategy is a great channel on options, and Trading the Wheel. That if you type in TJ Trading the Wheel, I did a podcast with him. Watch our podcast from like 3 weeks ago. Just click on live on YouTube and then watch like the thumbnail with me and him. He goes over a lot of stuff. The easiest way to get into options to me is selling covered calls and selling cash secured puts. These are two of the easiest ways. Cash secured puts, like the most easiest way to at least begin getting into options. It is a very interesting world getting into options. There's a lot of stuff to get into, but I think there are some I taught my mom a couple of days ago how to sell cash secured puts, right? So there are some strategies that are super basic that can get you into the world of options, but you have to be able to really get into it, understanding that it's very high risk in certain types of option plays. And there's other ways you can mitigate risk in a lot of different options, like selling cash secured puts. There's risk, but if you end up being assigned the option, it's because you're selling it on a stock you want to own, right? And so there's other things that are really risky that I wouldn't recommend getting into at all, that I don't do, but there's other very basic strategies too. Instead of buy shares, you get paid some premium in order for the option to buy those shares. And so cash secured puts, and I did a video on that a while ago. So you can check that out. If you just type in, I made 13% on my money in 2 minutes or something on YouTube, that'll pop up. Valentina says, Kathy Woodson recently took a new position in purchasers in a competitor to Palantir called Hub Cybersecurity based out of Israel. I'll take a look at this, Valentina. Look, whenever I hear Palantir competitors in the defense and contracting space, especially if they're coming out of Israel, it's interesting because, like, at the end of the day, for them to win the level of contracts that Palantir is winning has to be strong. But I'll take a look at them. I just, the way Palantir is winning some of these contracts, it's harder. It's like C3 AI and stuff. It's also Kathy. It's hard for me to trust Kathy at a lot of these things. So I'll take a look at them. I'll see. Can do a deep dive and see where they're going from there. Morning, brother Samuel. What's up? Ragu, thanks. No worries. When are you meeting Gary Vee again? Oh man, hopefully if he ever responds to the 17,000 emails. I did get in contact with someone that I'm not going to say publicly yet, about 3 days ago. That is pretty big, if not bigger than Gary Vee, to be honest. And we'll see if we can get that meeting set up. I actually contacted his wife, and his wife wanted to get in contact with us. So his wife is also a little bit of an online personality. So we'll see. I'll let you guys know if there's an update on that. But I will keep you guys updated there. HUBC literally just went public. Yeah, maybe that's why Kathy bought. Kathy tends to buy on the IPOs. So okay, that's it for me, everybody. We covered 3 topics today. Usually aiming to start these around 8 or 8:10 every day. Thank you, 157 people, for being here. Go get some coffee, get some breakfast. 9:20 in about 27 minutes. We will be back to begin the market open for the day. The market's up, futures up, NASDAQ is up, S&P is up, everything's up. We'll see if it lasts throughout the rest of the day. Ray, coffee break? Yes, coffee break. Go get some coffee, and I'll see you guys in 20 minutes. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.